excused. Sandy Feaster,
Here.
Curtis Casefang,
Here.
Janine McAuliffe,
Here.
John Reese,
Here.
Ian Dunn.
Here.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the September 23rd meeting of the Raleigh Historical Development Commission Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. My name is Janine McAuliffe. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are conducting this meeting using a remote electronic platform. I would ask for your patience today as we proceed. There may be slight delays as we transition between speakers, participants, and presentations. The Certificate of Appropriateness Committee is a quasi-judicial body that is governed by the North Carolina General Statutes and Cities Unified Development Ordinance. We conduct evidentiary hearings on applications for certificates of appropriateness. Before we begin the evidentiary hearings on today's agenda, I would like to provide some important information about the steps taken to ensure that each party's due process rights are protected as we proceed in this remote platform. First, today's meeting will be conducted in accordance with the newly enacted statutes and session law 2020-3, which allow for remote meetings and quasi-judicial hearings during declarations of emergency. Second, each applicant on today's agenda was notified before being placed on the agenda that this meeting would be conducted using a remote electronic platform. Every applicant on today's agenda has consented the evidentiary hearing on their request using this remote platform. We will also confirm today at the start of each evidentiary hearing that the participants in the evidentiary hearing consent to the matter proceeding in this remote platform. If there is any objection to a matter proceeding in this remote platform, the case will be continued. Third, notice of this meeting was provided to the applicant and the public in numerous ways well beyond the legal requirements for noticing this meeting and the evidentiary hearings. Specifically, notice of today's evidentiary hearings was provided by mail to all property owners within 100 feet of each subject property. Each notice letter notified the recipient of the remote meeting platform. The letters also stated to contact the city immediately if there were any objections to the evidentiary hearing for which the notice was sent or to the remote meeting platform. No case is proceeding today in which the city has been contacted by an applicant, participant, or other individual with an objection to the case or to the matter being heard in this remote meeting platform. Notice was also provided by posting notice on the site of each property, publishing notice in the newspaper, and providing notice on the city's website. The notices for today's meeting contained information about the means by which the public can access and view the remote meeting as the meeting occurs. Fourth, any individual wishing to participate in today's evidentiary hearings was required to sign up prior to the meeting to participate. Information about the sign-up requirement, along with information about how to sign up to participate, was included in the mailed notice letters sent to each property owner within 100 feet of each subject property. This information was also included in the RHDC city website. Among other information, a link to the website was included in all methods of notice. All individuals participating in today's evidentiary hearings were also required to submit a copy of any presentation, document, exhibit, or other material that they wish to submit at the evidentiary hearing prior to today's meeting. All materials that the city received from the participants in today's cases, as well as a copy of the staff reports and staff presentations, were posted online in board docs prior to this meeting. All materials that will be discussed today can be viewed at any time during today's meeting by visiting raleighnc.gov/agendas and selecting the RHDC Certificate of Appropriateness Committee. Finally, all individuals who signed up to participate in an evidentiary hearing on today's agenda, as well as all city staff participants, were emailed a witness oath form prior to today's meeting. Any individual planning to testify or submit evidence in an evidentiary hearing was notified that they must sign and return the oath form prior to today's meeting. We will also reaffirm everyone's oath on the record in today's meeting. Okay, thank you for letting me put all that out there. And now we are going to do introductions of the City Council appointed membership of our commissioners. I'm going to call each commissioner by name and let them introduce themselves and highlight their expertise. I'll start with myself, Janine McAuliffe. My background is, my degrees are in architecture, and I live and work here in Raleigh as a residential designer. John Reese.
My name is John Reese. I am an architect practicing here in Raleigh. I live in the Glenwood, Brooklyn neighborhood.
Thanks. Curtis Casebang.
Curtis Casefang. I'm a theater consultant, and I live in the Oakwood neighborhood.
Thank you. And Sandy Feaster.
Hi, Sandy Feaster. I have a master's in historic preservation and served previously on a historic preservation commission for another municipality.
Okay, thank you. And Ian Dunn.
Ian Dunn, I work at the State Archives of North Carolina, and I'm a Raleigh historian.
All right, thank you. Would staff like to introduce themselves?
Sure. Tanya Tully, Senior Historic Preservation Planner.
Aaron?
This is Erin Morton. I have degrees in history, bioarchaeology, and historic preservation, and I'm a preservation planner for the city.
And I am Colette Canane. I have a master's degree in historic preservation, and I also am a preservation planner for the city.
And could Francis Raspberry introduce himself?
Certainly. I'm Francis Raspberry. I'm with a law firm here in Raleigh, and I'm legal counsel to the Certificate of Appropriateness Committee.
Okay, terrific. All right, so that was our introductions. I think next is the approval of the agenda, if I'm correct. So unless there, I'm sorry, unless there is no, is that correct? We need to approve the agenda next?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So moved.
Is there a second? John Reese, all in, do we need to take a vote for everybody?
Favor.
All in favor? All right, it's unanimous. The agenda is approved. And now we need to approve the meetings from the August 26th, 2021 COA meeting. And we've
So
all
moved.
had a chance to look at that. John Reese,
Second.
second by Curtis. All right, any objections? All in favor? And that's unanimously adopted or approved, excuse me. And then we move to just make a note that as of the last meeting we held, the city staff has approved or processed 8 minor works applications since our last meeting. And now I think we're ready to move into the summary proceedings. All right, so we have one summary proceeding on this agenda for today. And that is case number 0124-2021 at 403 East Edenton Street. And we, unless there are any objections, we can approve this application without a summary proceeding. Are there any objections? All right.
No one signed up in opposition.
And no one signed up in opposition? Okay. Can we take a vote, all in favor to approve the summary proceeding without the evidentiary hearing? Okay, that's unanimous, and so that's approved. Thank you. All right. And we've approved the agenda, so let's see. I think now we're ready to move into the evidentiary hearings.
Name.
There, yes.
Oh, sorry, this is Erin.
Right.
One committee review of conditions.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if you would categorize that as evidentiary hearing, so I wanted to make sure you saw it.
Right, thank you. Okay, yes. So the next the next case is a committee review of conditions. It's COA 0061-2021 at 610 Polk Street. And shall I see if there's anybody to speak to this that I need to swear in?
So we have a brief staff presentation with just images of the material. There is no need to open up a public hearing unless you feel the need to discuss it.
Okay, so we'll get your presentation first and then we'll go from there.
Madam Chair, let me just interject one thing. If any evidence is going to be received, or if there will be statements of contention or arguments that are offered, if we're asking folks or suggesting that folks have an opportunity to put evidence in the record, that probably should be in the context of an evidentiary hearing. So if that's the case in this matter, you probably should declare the evidentiary hearing open before you begin.
Okay. Would that be applicable just if the evidence was a sample that we have seen off-site that's not actually in this meeting?
Well, if it's going to be a part of the record, and I think if it was received, considered, and it could potentially become a part of the record in the case, it probably should be done in an evidentiary hearing context.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that probably is where we'll go with this. So I guess we could start with the staff presentation.
Sure.
You probably should just declare the hearing open and just let
Okay.
this be the commencement of the
Right.
evidentiary hearing part of the meeting.
Okay, so we will proceed with this as a evidentiary hearing.
Yeah, or Janine, sorry. You can swear me in, and then also we have the two applicant owners here in
Okay.
support of the application. So if you'd like to go ahead and swear them in, we can do that as well.
Okay, I'll do all that at once. Let me swear you in, Aaron. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This is Erin Morton. I do.
Okay, thank you. And do we have our two speakers, Mary Grillo and Troy Maddox?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to swear you both in now. And can you state your name and your address for the record?
Mary Grillo, 610 Polk Street.
Thank you. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Maddox, can you state your name and address?
Yeah, Troy Maddox, 610 Polk Street, Raleigh, North Carolina, 27604.
Thank you. And Mr. Maddox, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, just want to point out that I was not on the commission to hear this case when it initially came through, but I have thoroughly reviewed the record and the project and feel like I'm in a good position to make a decision on the case.
Okay. Do we need to make any type of assessment in the commissioners if we approve keeping Curtis Casefang on the case?
Madam Chair, I think it could be appropriate if you'd ask the applicants, those present,
Okay.
if there are any objections.
Okay. Thank you. To the question to the applicants and anyone present, are there any objections to allowing our Commissioner Curtis Casefang to remain on this case?
No objections.
Okay, thank you for that. So
Madam Chair,
yes.
I think the same would apply for me as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandy, you were not present for that original case either. Do you feel as the same with Curtis Casefang that you can stay on the case and have followed
Yes. Mhm.
up to here? Okay, and again, I'll just ask the applicants and everyone present, are there any objections to Sandy Feaster staying on this case?
No objections.
No.
Okay, thank you for Thank you for all the formalities. Okay, I think now we might be ready for the presentation.
Great. So this case is COA 61-2021 for 610 Polk Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The committee has already reviewed and approved this application with the condition that the applicants come back for committee approval of the final replacement metal shingle selection. Next slide. So this is a view of 610 Polk Street. It's very hard to see the roof on the days that I visited, but next slide. Just a reminder for what the house looks like. And then we have a couple of images here of that metal shingle selection that the applicants laid out on the porch for each of you to review on your site visits. Next slide. And there's the back of the shingle. This is the Barrage Victorian shingle option. So feel free to discuss and determine if you can approve this item.
Okay, thank you. I guess since this isn't an evidentiary hearing, is there anybody here that wishes to speak regarding this case? Are the applicants, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I think if there's no discussion, I can close the public portion of the hearing and we can discuss. So I'll close the public portion of the hearing and open to commissioner discussion.
I'll start. In reviewing the shingle, I thought I don't see anything that would suggest that this is in any way incongruous with the guidelines. So I'm very much in support of it.
All right. Are there any other comments or does anybody want to make a motion?
I'll hop in there. I move that that we approve the proposed shingle on the project per the application and the draft certified record.
And John Reese seconds. And shall we, take a vote? All in favor? All right.
Raz, this is Tanya. Does she need to make a roll call?
You know, I was going, Madam Chair and members of the committee, I was going to make a suggestion that when we get to the substantive hearings, the requirements for electronic meetings are that you have a roll call. When there's a unanimous vote and the chair announces it, that's probably consistent with the statute, but it's probably better practice, particularly when you get into the regular agenda that for each case you call for votes by the names of each committee member.
All right, thank you for that. I'll start here then. So Curtis Casebang.
Vote in favor.
And John Reese.
Aye.
And Ian Dunn.
Aye.
And Sandy Feaster.
In favor.
And I vote aye, and that is unanimous. So this application is approved. Thank you, applicants, for coming back around with that sample. Next case is an evidentiary hearing of a previous application. It's COA 0111-2021 at 515 Washington Street. And I will go ahead and swear in Colette Kinane now to speak on this. Colette, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
This is Colette Kinane. I do.
Okay, thank you. And do we have the speaker, Katrina Godwin, here to speak?
I'm here.
Yes, she's here.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Goodwin, can I also swear you in if you provide your name and address?
Katrina Godwin, 501 Washington Street.
Thank you. And Ms. Godwin, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right, we do have a staff presentation. If you'll just wait 1 second for it to appear. All right, so as Jean mentioned, this application was heard at the last meeting, and some of these photos will be a refresher. But the case is COA 0111 2021 for 515 Washington Street. It is in the Glenwood Brooklyn Historic District, which is a street side HOD. And the request is to demolish the house and outbuilding. Next slide. So this is an aerial view. I believe in the last meeting, someone asked to see what the surrounding context looked like. So this is the property in yellow, and you can see it's on the edge of the district here. The property to the east of it is not included in the historic district. Next slide. And this is a view from Washington Street of the front of the house. Next slide. This is also from Washington at about the end of the driveway, looking towards the west slightly. Next slide. These two photos are of the features in the front yard area of the house. Next slide. And this is a view of the east facade. Next slide. And this is what you can see of the west facade. It's currently very overgrown and difficult to see. Next slide. So staff's recommendation is to approve with conditions. Next slide. At the previous meeting, you requested some tree survey information and additional structural assessment, a more robust structural assessment. And both of those things have been provided and were made available for your review. And if you have any questions, let me know.
All right, thank you for that. To the applicant, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, I'm just here and if you have questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant?
Ms. Godwin, have you given any more thought to perhaps salvaging parts of the house before it's raised?
I have not done anything about it, but I'm certainly willing to, to contact anyone or let anyone take what they'd like before it's raised.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant before I close the public hearing portion?
A question for staff. For staff, I noticed that in your list of facts, you're noting that or suggesting that a tree survey locating the trees be provided before we make a final decision on the application. Is that correct?
Yes, and the applicant did provide, it was a written survey. It was not what we typically receive. But also as a reminder, for this property, because it's in Glenwood, Brooklyn, the only trees that we are reviewing are in the front area of the property.
Okay.
So it would not be a complete tree survey like you're accustomed to seeing.
And is staff comfortable with the verbal survey here?
believe it was descriptive. Certainly could use what was written to identify the trees shown.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other questions for the applicant, or no objections, I'll close the public portion of this hearing and open it to internal discussion.
No, I appreciate the more thorough structural report, and the very carefully worded report by the structural engineer. I know we don't take into consideration cost in these cases historically. One of the things I did find interesting is that he very carefully phrased that the deficiencies taken together represent a significant financial investment that likely exceed the value of the home in its current state, which really doesn't speak to the economics of restoring it and attempting to sell it again. So not that that's goes so much into our decision, but it does go into thought about the state of the home and the urgency of its demolition, in my view. Beyond that, I also appreciate the Bartlett's letter, because I also found it descriptive as to where the trees are that would be impacted. And those are my thoughts.
I too had concerns about the structural engineer's wording on the cost to repair and using that as a support for demolition. I've seen homes in much worse condition be repaired and salvaged. And this may not be appropriate, but just curious about the boundary of the historic district, the historic overlay. Would those boundaries change if demolition were approved?
We have to open.
No, the boundary would not change. Any subsequent development on the site would be reviewed by you through the COA process.
And Colette, historically, would it be correct for us to assume that what goes back in this house's place would generally be roughly what is physically there in terms of its footprint on site, up to half the depth of the structure, as well as its overall massing? It would have to be compatible with the neighborhood, basically, in our review, because it's within the historic overlay district. Is that correct?
This is Colette. Yes, it's correct that any development would need to be congruous with the character of the district. That does not immediately mean that it would be the exact print of what is there currently.
I'm curious too, this is Janine, curious about just piggybacking on what Curtis just said. What if a new house were to be proposed there, would it be compared to or the original, when we look at built mass and built area, is it then get compared to what was there originally? Because there wouldn't be any other way to kind of compare it.
This is Colette. That's a fantastic question. I haven't worked on a application yet that was a recently demolished parcel. That makes sense logically if you're comparing to the original built area as it's worded in the guidelines. But Tanya, in the past, how has this been reviewed?
Again, we have not had this scenario come up since the guidelines were updated and we added that language about not significantly increasing the original built mass in the original built area. It certainly would need, I mean, as a general, I do know that from a design standpoint, you cannot compare it and require it to be a replication of what is there. It is treated as a vacant lot, but as to the nuances of the question, staff will have to look into that more when we get to that point.
I mean, given the text of the thing that we're looking at, comparing to original built mass and original built area, I would assume that we would be referencing the structure. Francis, it looked like you were about to offer some good advice there.
Madam Chair, if I may, I have some thoughts on this question. It does raise some legal issues. I do think that in light of the fact that you don't have the legal authority to prohibit the demolition, that's just the legal reality that you're dealing with as you hear this case. In light of that, I think it's accurate to say that this question needs to be answered in the context of an application to build a new home on the property, to construct a new structure on this parcel. And like I say, I have some thoughts about it, but I really think it's best not for me to say those on the record at this point in this hearing, because this hearing just relates to the demolition question.
I understand. That was more of a curiosity of mine. Sorry to take us off path.
Well, I mean, to me, the question before us then comes down to, is the application complete enough for us to approve it? And do we approve it with or without the delay? Seeing that the wording in the structural report and understanding the nature of building new structures on vacant lots in historic districts, I would really appreciate retaining the delay so that we can try and work with the applicant to find an alternative to demolition, because this is a very interesting and unique house that's very much the character of the district, and I'd hate to lose it. At the same time, I would also hope that we can, in that time period, ask the applicant at least to board over the windows and help make it weather tight during this period of time where we attempt to try and see that it's salvaged. I have not in the past seen us need to have that kind of condition. And I guess I'm going to look to staff to ask, in your experience, has there ever been a condition put on there that asks the applicant of a potential demolition to help at least stabilize the structure from further decay in the interim?
Hi, Curtis, Tanya here. If you didn't ask, I was going to jump in. Yes, that has been a condition before.
Okay.
John Reese, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't know how many demolition. Oh, this is our first demolition request in this neighborhood. Is that correct, staff?
No.
Oh. And were the others did the others come to fruition?
One did not.
Okay. The reason I asked the question is because Glenwood, Brooklyn hasn't been a historic neighborhood, has only been a historic neighborhood since 2016. We're still somewhat fledgling and new to this process, and I have a real reservation about just blanketing approvals on demolitions without conditions and letting it be on a faster schedule than it should be, simply because I think we need to exhaust all possibilities before we actually get to that point. And so I want to reiterate what Curtis said. And, the point I think we're trying to make here is if you're going to buy a property in a historic neighborhood, try to work with it rather than buying it because of its location in the city and tearing it down because it's not what you want. And not that the applicant has done that, but it does create that kind of invitation.
Well, and one of the realities I know we've learned in Oakwood is that the cost to buy a property in a historic district, demolish it requires a significant increase in built area and mass to make the economics work. And I think we've established here that chances are unlikely that there's going to be a huge change in mass or area. Okay. Well, I'm good to make a motion if everybody else is done with this.
All right, with no objections, go ahead, Curtis.
Okay, I move that based on the evidence presented during this hearing and the previous hearing on the project, information provided by the applicant subsequently, that the demolition of a house and outbuildings is incongruous according to guidelines, sections 1.3.1.2, 1.6.1.2.5, 4.2.1.2.3, 4.5.6, and the following facts, citing facts 1 through 10. We're going to admit the staff suggestion on the survey. That's my motion.
All right, is there a second? John Reese seconds. Any discussion? And is there a follow-up motion?
Do we need to vote on the first motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, and let's vote on the first motion. Let me go around. Ian Dunn.
Aye.
And John Reese. And Sandy Feaster.
Aye.
And I vote aye. And Curtis.
Aye.
All right. And is there a follow-up?
Yep, as follow-up motion, I move that we approve the application with a 365-day delay, citing the conditions proposed by staff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, adding condition 7, that the applicant make an effort to make the structure weather tight and remove accumulation of debris from the roof of the structure to help stabilize it during this period.
After a second, I have a comment.
And John Reese seconds.
Okay, staff would suggest that you be more clear than make an effort to.
Okay.
That doesn't give us anything to enforce.
I propose amending my motion on condition 7, that open doors and windows be sealed, that debris on the roof of the structure be removed, and that any additional accumulation of debris or any additional damage to the structure be mitigated to make the structure weather tight during the delay period.
And John Reese seconds that. And I'll go around and, is there any discussion on that before I go around? All right, I'll take a vote. Ian Dunn. How do you vote? Okay, aye. Sandy Feaster
Aye.
and John Reese.
Aye.
And I vote aye, and Curtis Case Fang.
Aye.
All right, so that's unanimous. So that motion carries.
Before you move on to the next case, I believe one of the conditions we suggested asked for a volunteer to work with the property owner. If anyone wants to volunteer now, please do. Otherwise, we'll be contacting you to ask for volunteers.
And can I just clarify, the volunteer was to give them guidance on documentation and salvaging and that?
Correct, yes. Just to work with the property owner during the delay period to make sure that options are explored and connections are made if needed.
And connections being reaching out to
to
other
potent-
preservation organizations and things.
Yes,
Okay.
preservation organizations, salvage companies. I know in previous applications, they've worked to, meet with architects or other designers to, make the repairs needed to bring the house back. It could really be all possibilities here.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there a timeline or some kind of procedural process in meeting with them, whose responsibility is to contact who and that kind of stuff? I'm happy to participate and be that liaison. I just I wanted to see if it was onerous to the owner to get in contact with me, or do I need to be the one to lead this and push it forward?
This is Colette. I don't believe in the past we've had any kind of hard and fast procedure here. Certainly, if you reach out to the applicants and they would rather let the time run out, I'm certain that has happened. But I would say probably it would be best for you to make the initial contact.
Yes.
I will be happy to do that. Would you send me their contact information and we will get the ball rolling?
Of course. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just add one quick comment for Mr. Reese. This condition is driven by the general statutes that calls for things to be explored during the 365-day or less delay period. It's not just simply to say there must be delay. It's for there to be an opportunity for things to happen, including options to demolition. And those steps are sort of, and those efforts are sort of spelled out in the general statutes. Happy to work with you if I could help with that. But it's fleshed out a bit in the statutes concerning the expectations during that period.
Please send that to me. I'm teachable and I need to be taught. Also, I'd like to understand. Send me that because it will help me give them guidance for how to proceed and what kind of opportunities are there for them to partake.
Will do. It is not an action plan, but it does list options.
And I guess my other question is, are there limits by, being a quasi judicial commissioner? Are there things I can't tell them, or things that I in terms of recommending contractors? I mean, how far can I take this with them in terms of working with them? It's just a general across the board. If I had I'm volunteering, I guess, as an architect to help them out in any way, and a commissioner because of my expertise in this realm. And I don't want to overstep my things of what I can, because I know we've got all these rules.
Right, sir. Once the decision is finally adopted, which would be at the next committee meeting, of course, and then the appeals period runs, which would be approximately 30 days after that, this hearing and the issues of this hearing are over. And at that point, you're simply a representative of the RHDC in an effort to look at options to save a property. And happy to chat with you if questions come up. But at that point, it has nothing to do with the quasi-judicial legalities of this case.
That was my question. And so what I'm hearing, though, is that I won't be contacting them for at least 2 months.
I think you can contact them. It's just if, you were talking about what things could you explore and so forth, that gets into sensitive areas. But, the likelihood of the case being appealed probably is extremely slim.
Okay.
But the matter will be finally decided in about 30 days and potentially 30 more, since it could be an appeal, but that's extremely unlikely.
I appreciate the clarification.
Sure.
All right. So I think on that note, that case, we can close that case. And move on to our new applications. The next case is COA 0117-2021 at 401 Elm Street. And we've already sworn in Aaron Morton. I think I don't need to swear you in on every case, if that's correct. Question to Raz.
Just as long as we note in the record that you've been previously sworn and she understands that she's still under oath or under affirmation.
Okay, thank you. So you're still under oath. And then do we have any speakers? I have Lane Miller. Is Lane Miller present?
Yes, I am.
Great. Can you give us your name and address and I'll swear you in?
My name is Lane Miller and my address is 3205 Clark Avenue in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Miller, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you. And staff, do we have a presentation?
Yes, just one moment. This is case COA 117-2021 at 401 Elm Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The request is to remove an existing CMU addition down to the foundation, construct a new fiber cement paneled addition on the same footprint, alter the existing screened porch, and alter existing site grading. Next slide. This is 401 Elm Street as viewed from Elm Street. Next slide. And a little less vegetation. The front porch is visible there. This is a corner lot, so we'll move around to the Oakwood Avenue side. Next slide. This is the Oakwood Avenue portion of the main house. Next slide. And the existing screen porch as viewed from Oakwood Avenue. Next slide. And this is from the public right-of-way onto the lot where the screen porch is, and the CMU addition is directly behind that at the back of the lot. Next slide. And an overall of this portion of the property. Next slide. Staff suggestion is to approve with conditions. And the applicant did provide new information in the form of a tree protection plan, photos of the tree requested to be removed, a screen porch section detail, and roofing material product data and finish information.
All right, thank you. To the speaker, the applicant, is there anything you'd like to add?
Not at this time. I'm just available for questions.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners, are there any questions for the applicant? John Reese?
What is the structural material? Excuse me, the structural material behind the stucco of your main house?
I believe it is brick. I believe it is brick with a stucco coating on top.
Okay. Because one of the things I noticed in here with the concrete block is that that's also that's a typical material as a base for stucco. And so I just wanted to clarify what the general house was relative to the screen porch.
I see.
All right, are there any other questions for the applicant? And if not, no objections, I'll close the public portion of this hearing and open to discussion.
I have a question for staff. In your report, you pointed out to the fiber cement panel configuration being a question that we should focus on. Has that been resolved to your satisfaction with the amended drawings?
Janine, would you like to open up the public hearing again and I'll respond?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'll open up the public hearing again. or staff?
Curtis, no, the question is before the committee just because we are unaware of any other cases where that material configuration has been approved. So it's up to you all. Staff has made a recommendation on the final decision.
And the concern is that in other structures, we've had fiber cement panels that are echoing clapboard siding, but in this case, it's just a flat panel. Is that correct?
That's correct. Just a different configuration.
Okay.
All right.
Question for staff real quick. Remind me what the period of significance is for Oakwood. Is it 1930? Is it end in 1930?
I believe it extends to 1940 ish, maybe a little bit earlier. Tanya?
Tanya here. At the moment, there is not a clearly defined period of significance. We have functionally been treating it around 1932-ish, but that will be in the next few months.
I mentioned that because the application, or not the application, I guess the application states that the addition was built in 1980. But based on photographs that we have at the archives, I would say that's more like mid-50s. But that still falls outside of your period of significance, so I guess disregard.
All right, any other questions for staff or any objections to closing the public portion of the hearing again? All right.
Nope.
I will close that public portion and open it back up to internal discussion. John Reese?
I'll start off, and I think Curtis would be the perfect wordsmith on this.
Uh-oh.
I understand why staff brought this to us is because there's nothing in the guideline that ever says you can use a panel. And I think that in this specific context on this specific house, it is appropriate for it to be a panel versus being siding. How that, because I know Curtis in the past, you've been very good about stipulating that when we veer from or modify a guideline that's specific to siding, you're very good at saying, don't think you can do this again.
Okay. I'm marinating on that one.
Are there any other comments?
I mean, from my point of view, just to have a little on the record over the fiber cement panel, I do believe in this application it's appropriate because we're looking at a stucco structure, not a clapboard structure. And on top of that, we're looking at a current addition or a newer addition. So in essence, we're expressing a similar look and feel with a modern material. And for that reason, I believe it would not be incongruous.
I want to make the comment too that it's on the back side of the house. So that location and also being sort of on this porch type structure, to me is a factor as well, is why it doesn't seem incongruous.
I agree.
Madam Chair, this might be a good time for me to just make one brief comment. I've discussed this with staff numerous times. Looking for consistency in precedent is very appropriate and worthwhile, but the issue before you is congruity. The legal issue is one of congruity with the special character of the district, not in and of itself whether a particular element or material has been applied for and permitted or not permitted. That's a secondary consideration that you give, but you sort of have to go back and find evidence on the congruity question, not just simply the track record and cases applied for in the past. And in this case, it sounds like there has not been any precedent at all, one way or the other.
Mhm.
Well, and I'd like to make that point because the way it's worded in the report, it does tend to lead the question of is it the material across the board, or is it incongruent with this property? And the way it's written in the report, it leads you to believe that we just can't have this material. I don't know if anybody else read it that way, but that's how I read it.
It
So
certainly
we had
called
that
the
material
question.
before, though. I mean, fiber cement has been approved in the past, right, staff?
Mhm. Oh, yes. Just lap siding.
Yeah, I was just, that's the way I read it in the report specific to this case. And I thought, well, this is, the house itself is somewhat of a unique standoff from every other house in Oakwood, because I don't know how many stucco houses are in Oakwood.
There are a bunch in Pullentown, that one block area.
Okay.
It's actually very much part of a theme with the houses around it in that small area.
That's right.
But I think what I'm hearing is our charge is not to kind of discuss congruity with this house itself, but with the neighborhood and
Exactly.
and the guidelines, in which case I think the argument that there's a stucco house and sort of this, and not any, more traditional hardy siding, horizontal siding there is not necessarily a deciding factor here.
Mhm. Okay.
And I guess maybe just for clarity too, when we've approved hardy paneling, I mean panels per se, I think it's been in applications of soffits and other sort of those types of trim details, not
Mhm.
inside.
Well, again, I think that, Curtis kind of really sealed the direction that we should take, or at least I want to take, when he said that there are stucco houses in the Pullen area. So there is context for it, and it's how we begin to address stucco versus how we begin to address wood siding.
Would somebody like to attempt a motion?
I'll attempt a motion, but I'm going to want a lot of help on the wording. 'Cause I'm at a bit of a disadvantage sitting at a kitchen table in Maine at the moment. Let's see, I move that based on the information presented in the application and during the public hearing, we find that they're moving the existing addition and screen porch down to the foundation, altering the grading, constructing a new fiber cement paneled addition on the same foundation, and altering existing site grading is not incongruous in concept according to guidelines sections 1.3.1, 0.2, 0.8, 3.2.1, 0.2, 0.6, 0.4, 0.5, 0.7, and 0.8. I'm sorry, 0.8 and 0.9. Citing facts 1 through 18, adding fact 19, that the addition is on the rear corner of the structure, adding fact 20, that the fiber cement paneling is being used to simulate or echo, take that back, is being used to simulate the look of stucco on a stucco home. And I think I'll leave it at that.
All right. Is there a second? John Reese seconds. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion? I'll go around. Curtis, Case Bang.
Aye.
Sandy Feaster,
Aye.
John Reese, and Ian Dunn.
Aye.
And I say aye, so that's unanimous. And is there a follow-up motion?
I move that the application be approved with the following conditions. One, the applicant receive prior to commencement of work all required permits or permissions from governmental agencies. Two, that the revisions or deviations from any portion of the as submitted work shall be submitted to staff prior to installation or construction for review and approval. Three, that tree protection plan be implemented and remain in place for the duration of construction. Four, the following materials and specifications be submitted and approved by staff prior to the issuance of the blue placard. A, the scaled screen porch section detail. B, the manufacturer standing seam metal roof specification. Actually, already have those. That was in the additional stuff. So actually, let me delete that item 4 that I just started reading into record, and have an item 4 that the following materials and specifications be submitted and approved by staff prior to installation and construction, manufacturer's door specifications, including section details and gutter and downspout locations and profiles.
All right.
This is Aaron. I have an additional comment after the second.
Okay, is there a second on that? John Reese seconds it, and Aaron?
Just wanted to note that we have received for item, or what's currently conditioned for, we have received the screen porch section detail and the tree protection plan. We reviewed what we have received so far for the roofing specifications and indicated that we may need some more information from the applicant for that in our email communications. So if you're comfortable leaving that in, we'll follow up.
I'm comfortable amending it and leaving it in.
All right. So that's amended and is, we had a second, so I'll go around and take a vote on that. Curtis
Aye.
and Sandy
Aye.
and John Reese
Aye.
and Ian Dunn.
Aye.
And I say aye, and that is unanimous. And so that application is approved. And could I step away just to turn on the light? Give me 1 second, I'm sorry. All right, my apologies. All right, okay, and we're moving on to our next case. Case number COA 0138-2021 at 1011 Overland Road. And we have already sworn in Colette Canane, and I have a list of 3 speakers I'd like to swear in if they're present. It's Mark Kuykendall and Rusty Long and David Holt. So Mr. Kuykendall, are you present, and can you give your name and address? All right, I'm not hearing that speaker present. Is Rusty Long here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Could you give your name, address for the record?
This is Rusty Long, 317 Glasgow Road in Cary.
Great. And Mr. Long, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. And do we have Davis Holt?
I'm here.
Great. And can you give your name and address for the record?
Davis Holt, 1483 Beaver Creek Commons Drive.
Okay, thank you. And do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you very much. Colette, are we going to pull up a presentation?
Yes, just one moment.
Okay.
All right, this is case COA 0138-2021 for 1011 Oberlin Road. It is in the Oberlin Village Historic District, which is a general historic overlay district. And the request is to demolish a house and remove 3 trees. Next slide. This is an aerial view of the property shown in yellow, with the historic district boundaries shown in the crosshatch pattern over top. And you can see that this property also, like the one previous, is somewhat on the boundary edge of the district. Next slide. This is a view from Oberlin Road looking towards the north. The driveway you see here is not part of the property. Next slide. This is a view from further north on Oberlin looking south. This is at the intersection with Mayview. Next slide. And this is a little closer of that same perspective, looking at the front of the Oberlin front of the house here. Next slide. This is the Mayview facade. Next slide. This is again from Mayview looking back towards Oberlin Road. Next slide. And this is looking towards the rear of the house also from Mayview. Next slide. And staff's suggestion is to approve with conditions.
All right, thank you for that review of that presentation. Are the applicants, would you like to have anything to say?
I don't have any additional comment and appreciate you guys looking at this and happy to answer any questions.
All right, are there any commissioner questions for these applicants?
I have one, and
John Ross.
Francis, stop me if I'm not allowed to ask this question. What is the current zoning for this property?
It's a
You're asking the
R10.
applicants?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a R10. Yeah.
Okay. Francis, am I allowed to ask the question of, do they plan to rezone it?
You can ask. I would suggest it's probably not relevant.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know.
To the issue. That's not something that should really be considered as having any impact on your decision.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
I have a question to the applicants. The staff, I know you've had a chance to look at the report the staff produced, and they were suggesting some conditions that go along with us approving this application. And in particular, just looking at that, I wondered if you had any comments on those, in particular, the one about documenting the building prior to demolition.
I don't have a particular comment. Happy to document the building with photographs and dimension drawings.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for the applicants before I close or the staff before I close the public portion of the hearing?
I'm
Sandy,
just
are you-
curious about the type of tree replacement and is location, I guess, discussed. Do you have any ideas of where the location of those would be?
And I guess I have a question, if staff would just be working with the applicant, if for locating and similar, appropriate species of tree? Is that typically what happens?
This is Colette, yes.
Okay. Sandy, does that answer your question? Or were you looking for more specificity?
does.
Okay.
It does. Mhm.
All right, with no objections, I will close the public portion of this hearing and open to internal discussion. John?
I'm reading in Oberlin. We've had several projects in Oberlin recent, not several, but significant ones. And Oberlin is I think is it the newest, or is Prince Hall the newest district that we've created? Staff, I can ask that question.
This is Colette, you're correct. Oberlin is the newest,
It's the newest.
2018.
And and historically, Oberlin Village has not been treated kindly by development, and this specific house, which I think is I loved reading about it here, is one of 7 in the entire neighborhood that has this type of significance as proof of the continued desirability of the neighborhood, which I find to be very, very important as a historical piece. My thought about this is as strong as the project that we discussed in Glenwood, Brooklyn, where I'd like to proceed with ways that someone can work with the owner to see if this house can't be kept at some level. I know that down the street, I think it's the pastor's house that was somehow it was separate from, but it's been now kind of worked with that church. They didn't tear that house down. I know it has something to do with the church itself, but that house I think is the same kind of, is probably one of these 7. I think it's important that the owners take as much responsibility as they can to work with what this neighborhood has left of it, because especially this neighborhood, because it has been treated so badly in the past, and I think people need to step up when they buy properties here.
All right, thank you, John. I will say that I am in agreement on the delay for this demolition and also working with the applicants. And certainly, I guess we don't have as much information on the condition of this house as we did with the previous one, but I would hope that there's, if it's in better shape, and again, we can't stop the demolition, but we could certainly be a resource for salvaging material in this property, and I'd hope that that would be something that could be explored during that delay. Are there any comments?
Ian, do you know if this was a single family home at one point? I kind of get the sense it was from the information we have here on the listing. Do you have any?
Did you direct that question to me?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it was the Romeo and Gladys Turner house, or Romeo, Robert and Gladys Turner house, until I think Gladys died in 1983, and then it was sold to someone else and likely rented.
Okay. It's interesting information. I mean, because it's actually kind of a lovely example of this style home. Okay. I agree with the conversation about delaying demo to try and find another route to save this house because of its history and because it is one of a few in the neighborhood.
Would somebody like to make a motion?
Well, somebody else gets to give it a shot now.
I'll try, but
Like John
but,
Reese's.
but can I, Curtis, can I get a copy of what you did for the Glenwood Brooklyn thing so I can read that? Okay. Based on the information contained in this application and the staff's evaluation and this public hearing, demolition of a house is incongruous according to is incongruous according to guidelines 1.3.1.2, 4.2.1, 0.3, 4, 5, and 6 with the following suggested facts.
Not
One,
suggested.
oh, not
Or not
suggested.
suggested.
Yeah, with the following facts. Thank you. Thank you. And speak up every single time because I don't want to, I need to learn this. 1 through 7. And removing a patio, removing a driveway, and removing 3 trees is not incongruous according to guidelines 1.3.1, 0.2.7, and 1.5.1. However, the removal of healthy trees is congruous according to guidelines 1.3.5 and the following suggested facts 1 through 4.
I'll second it.
All right.
I'd like to suggest an amendment to A, which is a fact 8, that the house was a single family home through 1983.
Yes. Good one.
All right, any other
And-
discussion before we take a vote on that? All right, I'll go around. Curtis,
Aye.
Ian,
Aye.
Sandy,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so that carries. And is there a follow-up motion?
Yes. I move that we approve the application with the following conditions. Shall I read the conditions or can I do 1 through 8 and then
You can
add as
listen.
necessary? Yeah, okay. With following conditions 1 through 8. And with the added number 9, is that right? That we appoint somebody from the commission to work with this applicant to investigate, research, promote, and cajole opportunities to keep it.
I think that's actually number 5 in your list already.
Oh, okay. Yes, okay. Then I don't need a number 9. I'm good.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, I'll go around for your vote. Ian Dunn,
Aye.
Sandy Easter,
Aye.
Curtis Casefang,
Aye.
John Reese,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so that carries. So this,
This is cool. If, like the previous case, if you would like to appoint a volunteer at this time, we encourage you to do that, or you can email us later.
so any volunteers?
I can't take on 2. I'm sorry.
Fair enough.
And I need to wait a little bit to figure out what that window looks like for me, because the window where greatest activity will probably be 2 months out. So I'm gonna have to wait on that for me.
Perhaps Colette, we follow up after at a later time to determine who can. Okay. All right. So that is, that case is closed. And we're moving on to our next new application. It's COA 0141-2021 at 505 East Lane Street. And staff is Aaron Morton, who's already been sworn in. And we have a speaker, Brett Thompson. Are you present?
Yes, I am.
Great. And can you give your name, address, and I'll swear you in?
Brett Thompson, 505 East Lane Street.
Thank you. And Mr. Thompson, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. All right, and I think staff has already pulled up their presentation.
This is case COA 141, 2021 for 505 East Lane Street in the Oakwood Historic District. The work request is to construct a rear pergola, construct rear patio and walkways, alter the existing driveway, construct a 42-inch trash enclosure, expand front planting beds, install rear planting beds, mulch area in rear yard, and one after the fact request to alter the rear gate design. Next slide. This is a new construction house, one of 3 in a series. The map in the previous slide actually is not updated yet to reflect this. But this is a view of the current house at 505 East Lane Street from East Lane. Next slide. And this is more of a streetscape view of the existing conditions on the lot. You can see the rear fence to the right of the house. Next slide. And another streetscape of the front yards along the Lane Street. Next slide. And then just a few detailed shots of the existing lot from the public right of way. So this is the west side yard looking towards the rear of the lot. Next slide. The front yard and plantings with the front steps and porch. Next slide. And the existing driveway strips and rear fence. Next slide. Staff suggestion is to deny the expansion of the front yard planting beds and approve the remainder of the application with conditions. Next slide, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak to anything? Or in the staff report?
No, I don't believe so. I got a copy of the staff report. I think my only question, and this might be for the staff, is you mentioned you included the playground area as built area. Because I had not included that in the calculations that I had sent, but you added that.
This is Aaron. Yes, that's correct. We, in reviewing the built area on the lot, determined that that was a formalized area rather than a planting bed and included that in the built area. Raz, if you have any additional comments on that, please let us know.
I really don't, Aaron. I think the paved areas, the impervious areas under the guidelines are considered as built area. But that's the only comment I had.
I'll add for additional explanation that we're looking at for built area in the design guidelines. That is essentially the original state of the lot and how it is proposed to change over time, not necessarily impervious surface calculations.
A question for staff, focusing in on B, the planting beds, specifically the front planting beds. This is a very small area in the front of this house, and on this stretch of block, there are a number of front yards that are fully planted. I'm not quite sure how 1.3.9 is saying that we can't necessarily do that. Can you help me with your thinking?
Sure. The thinking from staff's point of view is simply that front and rear yards are traditional landscape configurations in the Oakwood Historic District. There were examples provided of other fully planted front yards in the district. We were not able to locate approved COA applications for those conditions. If the committee would like us to look into that further, we certainly can.
Okay.
Well, to follow up with that, I think what I hear Curtis saying is that expanding planting beds, installing, rear mulch there is not incongruous in concept. Significantly reducing the amount of front lawn area is incongruous. I guess my question is there a minimum amount of front lawn area that's required? I'm just a little concerned because I've seen other houses in Oakwood where, and my typical understanding of it has always been that it's sidewalk, 2-foot fence, whatever you want to do in that little space between that fence and the house, planting wise, whether that be a bed or it be grass. And I've seen both, so I'm a bit confused. And does my question make sense?
Is that a question for staff?
Yes, I mean I'm trying to get at where your lead is here in terms of us talking about this.
Erin, is there a fact that addresses that?
That's what I'm reviewing right now.
I think it's B3 you're pointing to, where front yards are primarily lawn, bordered with planting beds.
Thank you. Yes. It's
Landscape
approved
plantings are generally informal, composed of simple foundation plantings.
Well, that's from the district special character essay.
Right. And what I'm wondering, well, this will get into conversation later.
Are there any other questions for the applicants?
I have some.
Okay, John.
Brett, can you tell me, I'm just curious, why do you want to pave over everything?
I'm not paving over are you talking about for the landscaping or for the brick?
Well, because as I understand it from the design, pretty much that little front yard zone is the only pervious surface left.
Yeah, well, so there's two different parts of the COA, so that's why I'm asking if you're talking about the brick pavers or about the landscaping.
Everything that is, what I'm trying to ask about is, you've covered over a great deal of the area with impervious surface that's not impervious right now. And my question is what your goal was with that, or intent, because I don't necessarily see like bricking in between the wheel tracks. There's not a functional reason to do that.
Yeah, so the reason for breaking in between that is it's really just a disgusting wet mess every time we're getting in and out of the car. So we have, kids, and every time we're trying to get in and out, load stuff out of the back of the car and they're walking across it, it's tracking stuff everywhere. And it was just to fill that in, just so that at least the driveway itself, we had a solid surface when walking around the car in front or behind it, that we don't have to, us and our kids aren't having to step in wet, nasty grass. On certain days it doesn't matter, but obviously we can't control that.
Gotcha.
And as far as the backyard, the original concept when we purchased the house was this. The original builder, there was a screen porch that part of the construction contract was contingent on a COA approval of a sunroom, which was approved and is currently under construction. the structure existed. There was a screen porch there. But the idea was to move the outdoor living space down into the yard rather than up on, since it is no longer there on a porch. And so the patio is there for that, and the covered pergola just to give an outdoor living space to the backyard.
And my comment to the effect of that much impervious surface is a lot more runoff into the city street.
Right.
Really set up a scenario here to where there's not a lot of place for that water to go except down your driveway.
The runoff on the back actually just runs towards the back. It doesn't run towards the street.
Okay.
And, you know, looking at the impervious surface guidelines for that property, we're still well underneath that.
Well, and so it begs the question that water has to go somewhere. So it's now you're dumping that water into the neighbor's property in a sheet. So I'm just wanting to make that comment in terms of helping you understand the effect to your goal, and that it has implications.
Yeah, and I'm aware of that. I mean, I had this design done by the landscape architect to help me come up with a plan that, you know, made sense. And so the entire bed, or the patio, the brick patio in the back, it seems like a lot that's being added, but the builder did not install the previously approved sidewalks and patios, knowing that we were going for this. We just asked him not to because it would cost more to tear out than to put the new stuff down. Mm-hmm. So what we're actually adding as compared to what would have been there had we not stopped the installation of it is not as significant as what it appears. Because there's no sidewalk or patio anywhere around the back of the house that was originally part of the new construction design that was never installed. But the patio itself is surrounded by a 3-foot bed on all sides. And so there's not going to be direct runoff from the patio into the neighbors' yards, because will be a planted buffer between the actual brick patio and the fence.
Janine, Tanya here. May I make a quick comment?
Yes, Tanya.
I just wanted to comment on both John and Curtis's questions regarding the staff fact and the front yard. Mm-hmm. So staff regularly relies on the special character essays for the historic overlay, for the historic districts in preparing our staff reports, as that's that's what we have that speaks to the overall character of the various historic districts. Of course, it is up to you as the commissioners to look at the evidence that is submitted for each individual application and make your decision based on that. But that's where that came from.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Janine, this is Erin. I'd like to also add a clarifying comment.
Okay.
I just wanted, in light of the comments from the applicant just now, I wanted to clarify that the built area calculations, the existing built area calculations don't include any walks or patios that are not currently constructed. It includes the front walk and the portions of the house, but no rear walkways or patios.
And I'd like to drill down into the pergola flat roof for a moment and the infill brick pavers. I'm not aware of any structures with like pergolas with a solid roof in the district that have been approved. Is staff aware of any?
Well, technically, if it's got a roof, it's not a pergola.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I can remember a parking structure that was the subject of a COA violation for a very long time in the district. That's a flat structure with a solid roof. And this seems a similar situation. The other one for staff is the brick pavers infill in the concrete between concrete strips. Are we aware of any of those that have been improved in the neighborhood? I am not. Which is my answer.
Curtis,
This is Aaron.
Yeah.
Brick pavers infilling concrete strips is common and has been approved in the district.
Okay.
And your question about I guess a solid roof on a pergola structure,
Mhm.
there has been one approved, but not in this district. It was in Boylan Heights.
Okay.
You know, in both of those examples, one, it's not a pergola if it's got a roof, and it begs the question of why, if the wheel tracks are there to minimize the amount of driveway you use.
Right.
So it's not wheel tracks anymore; it's a driveway.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I was going to make the comment just about those wheel tracks and the brick infill that I think the applicant, and I think we still have an open, we're still open to the public here, so the applicant maybe can comment here, but it sounded like that was, the bricks were being infilled. And I know it's not important as to why, but it was sort of a, maintenance type concern. But it seems like a very common approach would just be to put some grass between there if you didn't want the gravel. And I guess I was curious as to the applicant's comments on their choice of infilling it with the brick.
Yeah, the grass is what is currently there.
Oh, the grass is what's currently there. Okay.
Yeah, so we have grass currently there. The house, we were it wasn't in a historic district, but we briefly rented a house while this one was being completed that had a gravel infill. And honestly, it was just as messy. It's the grass. Less maintenance, but it was still just a nuisance.
Janine, Tanya here. May I comment?
Yep.
I just wanted to comment on the driving strips with the, brick infill. That is something that has found to be congruous in enough COA applications that staff regularly approves it as minor work COAs.
Okay.
The reasoning in the earlier decisions had to do with the fact that it still has the appearance of driving strips, even though functionally it may be one solid surface. And this of course also depended on built area and all of that.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any more questions for the applicant, or can we close the public portion of this hearing? And if there's no objections, I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing and open it to internal discussion. And I did want to make a comment just about, I guess maybe staff can clarify if I've got these calculations wrong now after our discussion here, but in the report, we were looking at the built area currently at 45%, and it's proposed at 63%. In which case, I think we are just kind of right at that threshold of kind of the well-related nearby properties according to the staff report. So just kind of a point of reference for that built area increase is, I guess you sort of consider it barely kind of within the range of the well-related nearby properties.
I agree.
Is that a question for staff?
No, I'm sorry. I mean, well, unless staff, do you need to correct those calculations?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Is there discussion about the front lawn situation? Anybody want to
Yeah.
discuss
I mean,
that?
this is Curtis. My take on the front lawn situation is, while grass is typical in the district, it is not a constant.
Mhm.
So I'm not seeing that as being so much of an issue. And my inclination would be to say it's not incongruous because it is such a small area. And there are so many examples of it. And frankly, it's landscape, it changes. It's like paint. But I don't think it changes the character of the district.
I agree with that 100%. I also, you know, grass has to be mowed.
Yeah.
And, you know, the amount of, and not that this, the way it's set up is that grass is bad. It's just that when it gets down to such a small amount, and like what you said, Curtis, about it being all over the district, I agree with you. I think that I would be inclined to allow that to proceed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more concerned about the wheel tracks and the roof over a pergola, because it becomes a canopy, or excuse me, a cabana, I think, at some point in time. And is there are there any guidelines that say you can't put this type of accessory structure in your backyard, and it has to be roofed or not roofed or something like that, and what you call it?
Oh, and I don't think we're going to find any examples of that kind of structure in a backyard. And to me, it's the aggregate of the backyard with the couple hundred square feet of brick paving leading to the pergola. I mean, this is a very formal backyard, which is, there's nothing wrong with it. I just don't think it's necessarily congruous with the character of the district. With the amount of paving that's involved, I could see, you know, brick pavers leading to the pergola and leading to the screened-in porch, but not necessarily an entire kind of room worth of brick paving in the backyard. And I know we're getting really close to design by committee here, which is where I don't want to be. But I do see staff's point about the amount of built area, and my focus on where that's coming from is really on those two elements in that backyard.
It's exactly my point. That's exactly what I was thinking, is just the amount of impervious surface that's come up because of those two elements. Yeah, because I mean, it's almost like they're roofing over the yard.
There is a lot of construction back there, yeah.
And we've said, we heard from staff, I think, and maybe you all can confirm, did I hear this right? That we don't have examples of covered pergolas in the
So
district.
we heard from staff.
In this district, yeah. They said they did one in Boylan, but there's not any in Oakwood.
Yeah, and my thought on the concrete, wheel tracks infilled with brick is, sounds like that is been approved in the neighborhood, and I'm inclined to, say that is something that's happening, been approved, and in this case would be congruous.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you there on that. So what we seem to be focusing on is the backyard design.
I agree.
And I suppose there are two ways to handle this. One way to handle this is to approve the application and have conditions that remove the roof from the pergola and drop the paving level in the backyard down to pathways as opposed to large areas. Or it would be to defer the case, asking the applicant to adjust the design in the backyard, knowing that this is what's coming, which would make it a clearer goal, because I think removing elements like what we would be doing as conditions is a little on the prescriptive side, as opposed to asking them to find a way to do this. And I realize it's gotten dark in here.
It is dark in there.
I don't know if I'm allowed, can I make a statement really quick?
Yes.
or-
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'll need to open up the public hearing once again.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
if there's no objection, I'll do that for the applicant to speak.
Please.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I don't know if this makes a difference or not. Just a reminder, I don't remember if it showed it in the photos. The entire backyard is closed in by a privacy fence. And so as far as the visual element of it, it's only visible from the back windows of our property, our house.
And I think that, again, to just kind of help the applicant understand, we get that, but we have to understand that this is about the district and what is allowed in the district, and your yard just happens to be in the district. So even though you can't see it, it falls under the guidelines of what the district will allow. And I just want to help you understand that we're not citing your specific property and what you can and can't do on that property. It is about what is appropriate for the bigger framework for others in the future.
Yeah, and I am flexible on it. I mean, it's not a hard bat, as far as the built area, that particular format, just from a design element, it was very, it flowed, right? We just followed the fence line. We kept an even landscape buffer all the way around, to follow that plan. One of the things that I believe Aaron, whoever sent me the staff report, mentioned was just a reduction in the built area. They said with, either with the patio or with the, what we had designated as a kids play area, which again, I'm still not entirely sure why it's considered built area since it's just mulch, but that is something that, it would drop it below that, the 63%, below 60% if we either just grass that area and did not do it that way. That's, my point in saying that is I'm willing to be flexible. Honestly, time is of the essence for us, just because right now the backyard is just a muddy mess since the building never really finished everything.
So you'd prefer it if we would provide a decision with conditions as opposed to having you go back and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to. I mean, I'm not sure the format. I haven't done the COA before. I mean, I'm willing to discuss those and try and just agree on something and just move forward, just be done with it.
And then if in the process you decide you want to do something that's different than the COA, it could come back through the system as that one item as opposed to the broader application. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay, if there's no objections, I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion once again so we can see if we can render a motion here. And I guess, John?
Yeah, the only thing I'd like to do is follow up with Curtis's comments about asking limiting the amount of impervious surface, and that if it is a pergola, it is a pergola, meaning that it does not have a roof.
And not impervious, I think you're saying the built area, John?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yes,
built area.
okay, right. And, staff has recommended those conditions, whether we think 60% or less kind of hits the right sweet spot, but, that certainly gets us down from just passing the threshold of kind of what I think we've identified as our more, kind of typical range of built area in the existing neighborhood. So I'm in agreement with proposing to bring that built area percentage down.
Agreed. I think that the major question, I just want to reiterate that we're not trying to be picky or in the weeds with this. It is about what we are determining for the district across the whole.
Right.
All right, is there any other discussion? Would anyone like to try to make a motion?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Based on the information contained in the application and staff's evaluation in this public hearing, that constructing a rear pergola, constructing a rear patio and walkways, and altering the existing driveway is not incongruous in concept according to guideline sections 1.3.1.2.6.9, 1.5.1.5.6.9, 1.6.1.6.7, and 1.6.9. However, significantly increasing the site's built area is incongruous according to guideline sections 1.3.8 and 1.5.7, and the following facts 1 through 10. And expanding,
You're right.
expanding front planting beds, installing rear planting beds, and installing a rear mulch play area is not incongruous in concept according to guideline sections 1.3.1, 1.3.2, and 1.3.7 and 8. However, significantly, can I just stop there?
What I would do is say is not in Congress according to guideline sections 1.3.1, 7, 8, and 9.
8 and
Stop
9,
there.
thank you. Yes. With the following facts 1 through 6. Construction of a 42-inch trash enclosure and altering rear gate fence gate is not incongruous in concept according to guideline sections 1.4.1.2.8.11, and the following facts 1 through 6.
I'll second it.
All right, is there any discussion? And I'll go around and ask for your votes. Curtis,
Aye.
Ian,
Aye.
Sandy. I'm sorry, Sandy. I think she said aye. I saw her mouth.
Yeah.
And John Reese?
Aye.
And I say aye. So that motion passes. And is there a follow-up?
Oh, thank you. I move that we approve this application with the following conditions. 1 through 6, and strike A of the pergola roof because there will be no roof.
I'll second, and I'd like to offer an amendment
Yes.
that 5A revised site plan should be changed to revised site plan to reduce brick paving to walkways, and add C revised pergola design to eliminate the solid roof.
Done.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? And I'll go around to get votes. Curtis,
Aye.
Ian,
Aye.
Sandy,
Aye.
and John.
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that motion passes unanimously, and that case is complete. Thank you to the applicant. All right. I think that brings us to our last case for this evening, last evidentiary hearing. It is case number COA 0144-2021, and it's at 917 West South Street. And Aaron has already been sworn in as a staff speaker, and I've got Speaker John Demler cited to speak. Is he present?
Yes, I'm present.
Great. And can you give your full name and address for the record?
John Demler, 917 West South Street.
Thank you very much, and I'll administer the oath for you. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, for my landscaping project, I solemnly swear. Yes.
Thank you very much. All right, looks like staff is going to give us a presentation.
This is case COA 144-2021 for 917 West South Street in the Boylan Heights Historic District. The work request is to install install timber steps in the side yard, mulch area in rear yard, install rear yard plantings, and an after the fact request to alter the deck railing. Next slide. This is a view of 917 West South Street from South Street. Next slide. A view of the east side yard, looking toward the rear of the property. Next slide. And just moving further along to the rear of the property, the deck is on the right in this photo. Next slide. And now we're in the rear yard where the landscaping changes are proposed. Next slide. The remainder of the rear yard, existing conditions. Next slide. And looking back the other way in the rear yard. Next slide. Staff suggestion is to discuss the congruity of timber site steps and rear yard timber edging in the Boylan Heights Historic District and the significance of the proposed built area increase. Should the committee choose to render a decision, staff suggests that the committee approve the application with conditions.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Mr. Demler, do you have anything you'd like to add or respond to regarding the staff report or any information?
Yeah, I guess I'm just interested to hear what staff thinks about the condition regarding the redo of the deck railings. Just feels a little out of scope for the application, and I'm just unclear when we were supposed to have known to do it differently relative to the previous application that scoped the deck build. So, I mean, I'd love to just hear the discussion, and then maybe we can come back to that.
Janine, this is Erin. Would you
Yes.
like staff to respond?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, staff, could you respond to that inquiry?
Sure. So typically how we handle work that we find in new applications that was not completed according to previously approved COAs is in order to sort of limit the or increase the administrative efficiency of handling that item, we loop it into the existing current application. You just saw that in COA 141-2021 with the altered rear fence gate design. In this case, the side deck railing was constructed in a configuration that has been found not to be congruous with the historic district by the commission. And so the suggestion is to adjust and correct that railing design to be a congruous format.
And Aaron, my understanding here from what you're saying is and from the condition is that the previous application had an approved railing design and what went in is different. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. Typically, we would perform, when the applicant calls us, we would perform a final site inspection to make sure that everything was built at the time, the way it was approved. That was not performed for that particular case.
Yeah, I think that's the key here is that this was part of an approved COA that did not follow through in its application design.
Yeah.
So for my clarity to the applicant, Mr. Demler, were you the applicant of the original COA we're talking about?
I was.
Okay.
And I believe there was a follow-up minor application that reapproached the deck to add a foot to it and restated the arrangement of the stairs. But I'm not sure if we're actually taking issue with the way the stairs were configured, or if we're taking issue with the way that the deck, I don't know, balustrades connect to the surface of the deck. So I'm actually confused, like what exactly we're talking about. But mostly just confused how we've ended up here as opposed to a landscaping thing. I appreciate that we want to be efficient with how we enforce the guidelines. I'm also just fuzzy on where exactly it says in the guidelines that we should have done what we should have done. And
it's the deviation.
I'll mention is, to do a landscape project and then tack on the cost of redoing a railing in this environment is just, like, frankly depressing. I mean, we're trying to just usable backyard for small children. So anyway,
I think the big issue is the deviation from the approved COA application, which it actually, and what should have happened is if you're going to redesign it, it should have gone through back to staff, and if they needed to, they would have thrown it to the commission. I think that's the essence of what's going on.
It's the attachment of the. I'm also just conscious it wasn't.
Aaron, can you give us a little more detail on how the design changed? That was the surprise.
Yes, certainly. The original application was approved with railings on the deck that were structurally inset and bolted from the top of the deck rather than through bolted to the side face of the deck. In the past, the decision has been made that is that is an incongruous way to attach a deck railing based on Design Guideline 3.1.6, which is the section for decks that states, ensure that new decks are sited and designed so that they do not detract from the overall historic character of the building or the site. There's also
essentially the railings are trying to echo more of a historic railing look than a modern deck look, is what you're saying too, right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, yes. And there's an additional guideline for decks related to treating particularly side decks more formally. I believe it's 3.1.3. So those are the two design guidelines that are offered up as evidence that it is incongruous.
And I have another question. Was there a railing detail as part of the application that they had to match?
That's what's challenging for me is I don't feel like the deck plans were ever provided in really sufficient detail to have this be a matter we addressed at the time. We certainly would have built it in a congruous manner. I mean, we went through an elaborate effort to make it congruous in totality. There was also a follow-up minor work amendment to the deck where we had an opportunity to look at it again. I don't know where in the record that is. I'm looking at it on my screen, but it doesn't have like a identifiable number. Amendment UAO 318 CA.
This is Aaron. If the committee would like to hear that number, we can definitely look it up right now. The reason it's not included in the staff report is that the amended deck configuration was approved and it did not alter the originally approved deck railing design. It was just the location of the steps.
Okay.
And to answer something that staff can't really say, I suppose, one of the reasons why this is happening as part of this application in context is, frankly, there's just not enough staff to administer the number of historic structures and districts we have for them to go out there and police them as a bottom line.
I do understand.
It's probably outside of the scope of this call, but
yeah,
I have a variety of opinions to stop on that. But.
Gotcha.
I don't want to take up all the time that we've got on this application dealing with that past one, but I do get if there's a scenario where there was no detail submitted that that was approved that you had to follow, there is some confusion there, and I understand that. And I think that has a valid point. I think that we as a committee, knowing that, if that's the case, can render conditions to help process it in a more timely fashion that fits with what you've got to do on top of what you've done. Does that make sense? Or can we do that?
Is that's me? Yeah. I guess so. Yeah. I mean, we just got to figure out who's going to do it, the budget to do it. Is it?
Yeah, I think the point here is it needs to be done, but how the staff can work with you in a timeline fashion,
Sure,
so
yeah.
that it has minimal, it mitigates some of the cost, not mitigates, but spaces it out so that
Sure.
you can get it done. I think that's to solve the problem is what we're trying to do here. And can we talk a little bit about the railroad ties?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me more about what your intent is with that? And I want to, reason I bring this up is because the examples that are provided in the application, staff note that none of them have gone through a COA approval process. They're either done, prior to, in the darkness of night, or just on the fly. And
John,
so
this is Erin.
Yeah.
Would you allow for a comment?
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that this is very specifically not a request to install railroad ties.
Oh.
These
Just
are timber
timbers.
steps.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Timbers railroad. Okay. Yes, I get it. I'm an architect. I don't even know the difference.
Okay.
But I think that timbers are from construction standpoint a temporary measure. They are not long term, and I don't care how well they are installed. They eventually rot and or twist, and you end up. It's just not a permanent solution. And so I'm trying to help get some clarification in terms of.
I guess just to comment on that, it's a very dynamic situation in the backyard, as you saw from the photos of the erosion, mud, and so I'm willing to change it again at a point and really work to kind of cater to how it seems like the situation is evolving in the backyard, which may be completely incongruous with how we operate these types of procedures. But I guess I don't know what exactly the right thing to do is. To be honest, I've spent too much money trying to figure it out and trying to make it copacetic with this. So I don't know if it's forever. Is maybe one way to think about your comment there, which does make sense, and it's something.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, we don't have the ability as a commission or a committee to say, well, it's temporary, so go ahead and do it, because everything that we see in applications like this is considered to be a permanent solution. And because you do have a lot of drainage, so this thing is stepping down, which basically you're using these timbers as curbs to basically terrace that drive. Is that correct?
That is correct. There would be an element of terracing.
Yes. And I think, my take on this and where I am is that I would like to see you use a true curbing material rather than timber to create a curb.
One of the big questions that will come up, John, in that conversation is what it would be a traditional landscaping curbing material that we would see in this district. And I think we'll be back around to the same question in the end, because I don't think there really is a traditional one.
Well,
Janine, do you have, looks
Yeah,
like
let
you
me
were about to.
comment. I want to make a comment that I think, again, we're not here to kind of provide the alternative that we are proposing as much as I think understanding that the idea of the timber is not something that has been approved, that we have precedent for in the neighborhood or see that there. And to me, that is kind of the discussion that leads me to think that that is something that we wouldn't find Congress and wouldn't approve. What it is for this particular situation and this particular site, I'm not sure. We need to come up with the alternative for that, but.
So timber being, the same material the home is made of. I mean, I guess I'm just surprised it's not historically Congress, given that that would have been a material readily available, and maybe the reason we don't see much of it is it hasn't survived, to John Reese's point.
Right.
I believe there was a variation on this plan that was approved with literally a manufactured product. So, so from a historical perspective, it's just confusing. And I find it deviates quickly to just an aesthetic choice or a choice that might hold up better, which I'm not always sure is consistent with.
Here's the point. In the period of history that we are of significance that we're dealing with, they would never have used timber to do a curbing job, and that's where we are in this situation. My points that I was in terms of maintenance and that kind of stuff are really just helpful hints for you, but the question in front of us is timber a congruous material used for curbing and terracing in this neighborhood during its period of significance? And the answer to that question is no. I hope that makes sense.
Perhaps we want to move to close this and just kind of get into a conversation.
I think so. All right. With no objection, I'd like to close the public hearing portion of this case and move to a discussion with the commissioner.
From my point of view, I mean, there's clearly a condition there that needs to get solved. Timber, not timber. The fact that it's sloping away from the street makes it largely invisible from the street. If it rots soon, well, that's a maintenance issue more than anything. So I don't see that we have an opinion on that. My inclination would be to approve it as a material, just because there were no. I mean, one might have done rock edging or something like that, but I don't see this as sort of the nature of Boylan Heights. It was a working class neighborhood that kind of supported downtown Raleigh, and they weren't using high-end materials like a rock stepping or anything like that in that time frame. And Ian, please correct me if I'm wrong on this. You really are the expert on that.
From my research, I don't think they would have used anything. I think it would have been pretty much, let it be what it is. So timbers, I don't have any problem with them.
Well, and I think that's where I completely am, is that it would have been a slope and pervious, so that, and plantings in such a way to where it would take care of the water on its own without having to do the terracing.
Mm-hmm. So it would have been designed, well, might not have been designed as a rain garden. They would just let it wash. Yeah. Okay. See, the other question for us was we had the timbers and not timbers, and increase the built area of the site was the other big question. Built area being, I assume, the amount of river walk and mulch that was laid down. From my point of view, I don't think the mulch is so much of an issue. It decays into dirt. It's kind of done. Perhaps the amount of river rock would be an issue. To me, that's, I think, the thing to focus on. But if we pull out the area that's covered by the mulch from the calculation, I think we're not far off of a typical thing for Boylan Heights.
I agree. I don't have, I think because we heard this in the previous case that mulch was considered a impervious surface, and I don't get that.
I think it's just an improved area. That's why they're using it as a calculation, not that it's impervious.
But I guess it's not a hardscape. I guess it's
Right.
a hardscape material or something. And I am amenable to following the committee's general consensus about the railroad ties.
Timbers.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm an architect. There we go. I just want to point out that it is not a traditional material to deal with drainage.
Yes.
That's all.
I agree. I agree with that. But my inclination would be basically to approve as proposed with the conditions noted by staff, and call it done. I think staff's issue with the railing change, while timing wise is unfortunate and how it happened is unfortunate. If there is a conversation to be had about the railing change relative to the record, that can be done as a separate application that we could clear up, or an amendment to this one. Well, I guess a separate one in the long run, and in that way remove that as a condition. But I think we should just kind of run with it.
I'll just make a comment that I'm not in support of approving the timbers, but think that the area calcs with our discussion, I think is, fitting with the neighborhood. So,
And our decision doesn't have to be unanimous. In fact,
I know.
it's something where I think
wanted to
it's.
make sure I said that before my vote.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually a very good thing if there's something that we consider on the edge that the decision is not unanimous. I've actually historically made motions and voted against them for that very reason. So I think that's I think that's a good thing.
Well, what would happen though if I were to stick to my guns and say no timbers, then we're at a tie with that issue.
Mm-hmm.
How does that get resolved?
Wouldn't that be right? There's 5 of us. So
there's 5 of them. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad. Okay, I'll shut up now. I'm an architect.
Can I make a motion?
I think it's time to make a motion. Go ahead, Curtis.
Okay, I move that based on the information presented in the application and during the public hearing, the committee finds that constructing side yard steps, mulching the area of the rear yard, installing rear yard plantings is not incongruous in concept, according to guidelines 1.3.1, 0.2.7, 0.8.9, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5.6, 1.5.9, citing facts 1 through 12.
Is there a second? Ian Dunn seconds, and is there any discussion on that? And I'll go around and get everyone's vote. Ian Dunn?
Aye.
And Sandy Feaster?
Aye.
And Curtis Case-Chang?
Aye.
And John Reese?
Aye.
And I vote no.
Okay.
And
Valid motion. I move that the committee approve the application with the following conditions, citing 1, 2, and 3.
All right. Second by Sandy Feaster. Any discussion? And I'll go around again. John Reese
Aye.
and Curtis Case-May.
Aye.
And Sandy Feaster
Aye.
and Ian Dunn.
Aye.
And I honestly don't know, am I voting no again? Because okay, and I'm a no. With that vote, that motion passes and that case is closed. So thank you to the applicant.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
All right, we have finished the evidentiary hearings and now we are moving to a vote on a deferred application. So we need to vote whether or not to defer the 605 North Butterworth Street. That's case COA 0114-2021. Do we need any staff presentation on that before we take a vote?
No, this is Aaron. No staff presentation, just confirmation that the applicants plan to attend the October hearing.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
I move
and-
that we defer that application.
All right, and John Reese seconds that. All in favor, John? Says aye, and Curtis,
Aye.
and Sandy,
Aye.
and Ian,
Aye.
and I also say aye, so that is unanimously approved, and that application is officially deferred. All right. Come to the end of the agenda where it says other business, of which I know nothing. Is there
I
other
have
business?
nothing. Cool.
All right, that's promising. Staff, is there anything that would stop me from adjourning this meeting?
Nope.
With no objection. All right, then I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.